Here we go. The Hangout is now live. I am attorney Michael Ehline, and I'm the founder of the Circle of Legal Trust. And I'm here today with a couple of other attorneys, and I don't know who's following us just yet because it's a little bit new. But today we're going to talk about Google Pigeon, which I believe is really just another iteration of the Google Venice update. And basically, I'm really going to go into it more for a lawyer point of view because, Circle Legal Trust is pretty much made up of personal injury attorneys, which is probably the most competitive search term there is besides maybe porn or something. And it's pretty crazy. And so I'm going to go into how that has affected members of our group who will remain nameless, but I've been taking polls and doing some of my own research and data gathering when I'm not in court, so it's been getting kind of hard because we're a little busy right now with litigation and stuff. But before I take off for the office, I wanted to just give you guys a little bit of an update about what's going on. First of all, the Google Pigeon update is supposedly, and it appears to be the case, a situation where Google is moving another step closer towards merging the organic and the local listings. And so just to give you a little history, it used to be that if you did well in organic search and someone typed in a search for, say, personal injury attorney, your whole website would show up nationwide, which was really great for lead gen companies, for example. But, Google, it's a publicly held company, and obviously everything they do is under the guise of improving the search results and improving the search results. And so what they're slowly doing is limiting the results that will display for your website for the geographic location of your physical location of your office. So obviously, if you want to rank outside of your physical location, you can use this wonderful product called pay-per-click. And pay-per-click is a bid-based system, so the more people who use it, the higher per cost the click is. And I had many friends who were very successful on pay-per-click until these algorithm changes started. And then the cost per click went up so high they just had to give up on Google altogether. And most of them have switched to Bing and other products, but a lot of them just gave up on the internet completely because it's just too competitive and too expensive for them to be able to succeed. As far as user experience goes, it's arguable whether or not a local business necessarily means it's a better result. I think the old way of doing it, in my opinion, was probably better. You optimized your website, you built a good site, you provided a lot of value to the client. Look, I fly up to San Francisco all the time to meet clients. So where your physical office is, to me, really doesn't matter, but Google's decided that seems to be the most important factor as far as what result they're going to display. So the end result is that pay-per-click use seems to go up every time they change the algorithm and limit where your business will display, where your results will display. So that's kind of what's going on here. So everybody braces themselves now in the personal injury field for the next update. I've never heard anybody say, I can't wait till the next update who's a lawyer, because 9 times out of 10 or more, that next update means that that they're going to fall down in the rankings. Now, there's winners and losers in these updates. Right now, it appears as though the big winners are Yelp, Avo, and a bunch of other large websites that really offer zero value in terms of user experience. Yelp doesn't have a section on personal injury. It provides absolutely zero value, as far as I'm concerned, in providing any information that's really helpful to consumers, except for, of course, finding a bunch of people who paid for a paid slot on Yelp, who show up at the top of Yelp, And in that case, you know, they're obviously getting a lot of phone calls because now Yelp is knocked out all of the legal websites and been replaced with Yelp. Some people say that's because Yelp is pursuing an antitrust claim against Google, and Google's artificially propping them up to sort of offset and mitigate any damages that are alleged. Other people think that Google's going down a new route, and they're saying that directories are what the user experience wants, because it's all supposedly based on user experience. Is this going to improve user experience? But I polled most, you know, of my clients and many other people on Google Plus, as well as the attorneys, and we're all kind of scratching our head because there's been a big battle against directories in the past by Google. They call them low-quality directories. And they've actually damaged a lot of search results of people who had listings in those directories. But apparently, if you create a directory that allows users to come in and vote plus or minus and make comments about your business, Google has apparently determined that that is a better user experience than finding an actual lawyer website. And so we're seeing that if someone does a search for personal injury attorney, that Yelp, Avvo, and many, many other directories that are using articles websites, but they're directories, they're replacing all the quality lawyer websites. So the consternation I'm hearing is, you know, why am I even wasting my time building a quality website, you know, that's crawlable and usable when Google is replacing our results with directories with all of our competitors in them. And so right now with this Pigeon update, that's basically what we've seen happen. We've seen pretty much the whole top of the first page replaced by paid legal directories, not even legal directories, but just paid directories in general. And some of those directories, in order for you to place well, charge 10, 20 grand a month. So my theory, and after speaking to some other experts about this, who've been doing this for a while, is that Google can't possibly continue doing this because already a couple of our members have actually canceled their Google pay-per-click in favor of Yelp. So their pay-per-click spend is now going to Yelp. The problem was that the cost per click was getting so high because of every time Google changes their algorithm, obviously more people use pay-per-click. And as a result of that, there's more competition on pay-per-click. So the cost per click is just going through the roof, and so they'd rather pay a company like Yelp or Avvo 10 grand a month to get a #1 slot for personal injury attorney, since that's showing up for #1 for organic. The other issue I'm hearing from consumers, people who are clients of mine, past clients, you know, who've given me nice ratings and stuff, I stay in touch with them. Some of them are web people, so you know, naturally we have an alliance as friends. We want to talk about what's going on with Google because our whole lives revolve around Google pretty much nowadays. And you know, what I'm hearing is that most educated consumers don't click on pay-per-click results first because they realize that most pay-per-click websites are not really that great. And they know that they're just paid, and they kind of look at that as like a paid advertisement. Most people traditionally look for the Google organic websites. And when I say organic, for those of you who aren't super educated, the organic websites are sites like mine, where I've strived really hard to provide really important and unique data that other attorneys don't provide on their websites. That's well written, as if I was Ernest Hemingway, for example. And clients, as a general rule, and prospective clients, tend to favor looking at those organic results first. But one theory is the reason Google's propping up directories is because they kind of know that when someone's looking for a personal injury attorney, they don't want to go to Yelp. Look, Google is already a Yelp. Google is a Yellow Pages. And so what I'm hearing from people is, a lot of people, is that why is Google displaying another Yellow Pages when Google's already the Yellow Pages? And when you reverse engineer it, one of my buddies said, well, it makes sense because the heat map studies show that they only look at the first couple slots on organic. And if the first couple slots are just filled with a bunch of directories, their eye's going to pop back up to the pay-per-click. And so it's sort of interesting to see the correlation between the Google stocks dropping and algorithm changes. It's almost immediate that a new algorithm change will come out when the stocks fall. And so it'll be interesting if you guys, a little test here, follow Goog on the stock market and see if the stock prices are coming up. Because you'll typically, when Google generates more revenue, their stock prices go up. It makes sense, right? Now, the upside for me is I'm a Google stockholder, so I'm always happy when Google stock prices go up. The downside for me is that me personally, I find myself using the Bing search engine because it's actually, when I'm searching for products, as a lot of you guys know, I'm a Second Amendment guy, so I'm always looking for discounts on ammunition and the latest, optic or whatever. And so I stopped using Google for those types of searches just because it's not giving me the results that I want. So what I'm doing personally is I'm starting to use Bing now to search for products and services, which is really crazy because I'm a Google stockholder. So that's just my personal testimonial on that. I don't want to digress too much here, but there's always a cause and effect whenever we see these algorithm changes, and so it's something I just want you to all be aware of. Now, with respect to the effects of Google Pigeon, it's one of the most interesting algorithm changes that I've ever seen with Google, because it almost appears as though, and unless this is still dancing around after a week or so, that Google is sort of turning the local results into what I would call a carousel. Because every time you check the results for a certain term, you'll see a different personal injury firm show up in the result. One of the things that we're also seeing is that the old school techniques of keyword stuffing your business name are highly successful right now. I see one firm in LA in particular who seems to create a new website every time they lose rankings with a fake business name. And usually it's stuffed with a bunch of keywords. And now they're doing exceedingly well. They dropped off after Penguin and Panda. Of course, you search the California State Bar website, and there's no business by that name. But you can see it's sort of gone back to, if you create a fake website, a fake business name, and just use your old phone number or whatever, that seems to pop you back up in the local results. So we're seeing results like personal injury lawyer, accident attorney Los Angeles, #1 now in Google Local. And Google had fixed that at one point. And then you see like the legacy businesses who have done their best to add their business to Freebase, to make sure that their NAP data is correct across the board, and who ranked well organically. You see them sort of disappearing, and then they'll pop up a few days later and then disappear again with the fake business replacing them. Another thing that we're seeing across the board is businesses like lawyers.com and Avo showing up in local search as a local business. We believe that we found one of them to be a law firm that actually pretended to be Avo and lawyers.com, capitalizing on their domain strength with an 800 number that refers to this law firm. I gave up on reporting this stuff a long time ago. I mean, the way I look at it is, if you live in a glass house, you really shouldn't throw rocks. Everything that Google and their quality people do is all based on subjectivity. So one person at Google may say you're a spammer, and the other person will say, hey man, he's doing everything Matt Cutt said to do. So you just never know what's going to go with these guys. So I sort of am, I've sort of backed off on trying to even worry about it, other than just to report it to you guys. But yes, there is a way you can go on the listings and report them. The problem is when you report a spammy listing with Google, typically Google doesn't do anything about it, at least in your mind. What they do is they try to create a script or an update for the next algorithm because they want to scale things. And so what you'll typically see is you'll see them in the next update, those businesses fall off. But within a few days, those businesses will create another fake, whatever, and they'll just forward the old domain to the new one, and they'll pop back up. So the people who really seem to suffer are the ones who actually abide by the quality guidelines, which is really a shame. And who knows what's going to happen there, but the bottom line is Google's a business, and they're in business to make money. And pay-per-click is how they make money. Unfortunately, because the results are so bad, ever since Penguin, really, a lot of people who I know, including myself, are starting to use other search engines. Now, a lot of you may remember the days of Excite. This was a company that did exceedingly well. They were like basically better than Yahoo, and then Yahoo became the it. And of course, Larry Page had created this phenomenal algorithm that they leased to Yahoo. And anyways, a lot of you may not know who Larry Page is, but he's the founder of Google. And Google actually leased their algorithm to Yahoo, and then they branched out on their own with this phenomenal algorithm, and Yahoo started to tank, and it's still in the tank to this day. And as a result, Yahoo started to lease their algorithm from Bing. Bing has attracted a lot of great talent from former Google employees, and actually Bing's algorithm is a lot like the old Google algorithm, which is pretty damn awesome. So just kind of weird, kind of funky, the way this kind of turned around. But going back to Excite, Excite started to plaster the first couple of pages of their results with paid listings, and that's when they fell out of favor with users, because users want to see those quality websites. And basically what we're seeing now is we're seeing sort of a combination of paid directories, and if you want to pay 20 grand a month to find Law or Avo or Yelp, you can be number one in one of those directories. Of course, you'll have to stop spending money on pay-per-click because there's no way you can afford both or lay off staff or whatever you have to do. And then you'll probably see an increase in some of your phone calls if people actually click on those Yelp ads. Me personally, when I see Yelp, in my mind, I think fake reviews. There's no way a personal injury attorney is going to have 68 reviews that are all positive 5-star reviews. It's impossible. So I think the reviews are highly suspect. Most clients never like their attorneys by the time they get their settlement for whatever reason, because it's never enough and they think the attorney made too much or whatever. So it's highly irregular for me as a user to really believe those reviews are really valid. So I kind of shy away from looking at the reviews. What I like to do is look at the attorney's website or any other website and just see, what does the business have to offer, and then form my own opinion after calling them and speaking with them. If I am going to try and look for reviews, typically it's going to be from someone who's like a trusted Googler, like a friend of mine on Google who may have eaten at a place and they didn't like the food. I'll look at what they have to say. But for the most part, I know that you can buy reviews from Yelp and Avo and other people. There's companies that actually sell it. So I don't really have a lot of faith in any of those reviews. And we also know that Yelp has that algorithm that filters out reviews. So I've actually had clients of mine go on Yelp and try to review my business, and Yelp refuses to display the result. I've also heard that there are some cases of Yelp being sued for a behavior of, if you don't pay for our services, we won't let your reviews go live. So I'm a little concerned about the review process personally. I'd like to hear what you have to say about that as users as well. But nonetheless, I was speaking with Conrad Sams the other day, and it looks like we don't see how Google is going to be able to sustain propping up highly paid directories in favor of legitimate businesses as top results, because now these legitimate businesses who were ranking well in organic search and who supplemented their organic search with pay-per-click, they've now lost their organic search results, and they have to make a tough decision. Do they want to just spend all their money on pay-per-click, or would they rather just pay a directory company? And so these are some of the issues that we're seeing. A lot of people think that it's just a dance and it's still dancing around and it's going to change. But we did hear Matt Cutts talk several months ago about Google starting to favor these mega sites like FindLaw and stuff like that. Now, the downside is, Google doesn't like it when you pay for what they call links. And I had a conversation with Eric Ng about FindLaw the other day, and it was kind of silly because we were asking, why is a company like that basically provides legal data, case information, statutes and codes, why are they in the business of selling websites to lawyers? And the only conclusion we could come to, it's because if you get a link from that website, from the FindLaw site, that'll prop up the website that they sold the lawyer. And if you don't get the link, it won't be propped up. So that's kind of like what we're looking at here.
Yeah, and also my shoes.
And everybody say hi to Annika. This is my little beautiful daughter here. Say hi. Say hi, everybody.
Hello. Hi.
Hi, Sophie. So,
she's beautiful.
We politicians and lawyers, we have to kiss babies a lot so people like it.
It's adorable.
Get your shoes on, okay? Can you do that for me? Okay. So, anyways, this really wasn't, excuse me, this really wasn't that big of a hangout today. It was really just designed to discuss a little bit about what went on, what's going on with the Pigeon and kind of the way it sort of merged the local and the organic results. Now, I wrote a really great article, at least I think it's great, on the Circle Legal Trust about the local Pigeon update. And this sort of covers how Pigeon's kind of a bird brain because it sort of went back to the old method of propping up sites with keyword stuff names. And of course, we have this dilemma of lawyers.com and Avvo now displaying as local attorneys. So now the other interesting thing that I haven't touched on yet is the old data merge. We know that Google has a tendency to merge data of two lawyers, for example, together and skew their listings. And they like to do that in offices that lease space to attorneys. So if you're in a large law building, like one of my locations are, you'll find that the mail delivery comes to the main suite number, and then the landlord sorts the mail for us, because that's just the way you do it. And that's the traditional way it's always been done. And so, because of the data merge, well, Google will just like sort of cluster all the data together of all the law firms in that business. So your business will show up with some other attorney's phone number. And of course, Google will claim that, well, you just need a unique phone number and suite number and you'll be fine. But there has been some speculation that what they're really doing is they simply don't believe that you really have an office there. And this is their way of giving you the middle finger because they're worried about fake businesses. So I wanted to go into a couple of tips to kind of help you guys out because they had fixed this data merge issue, but now I'm hearing reports that it's right back to the way it was. So if you're sharing an office or you're renting like a Pigeon suite like I've done in the past in a building that has other attorneys, there's a couple of things that you need to do. First of all, Google expects you to have an agent or a representative at your location to be able to meet with clients during posted hours. In other words, they've kind of told you that you have to basically change your business model as a law firm in order to comply with their guidelines or they won't display your business. And so what that really means is, look, 9 out of 10 attorneys are rarely actually at the office. We're in depositions, we're in meetings, we're in mediations, we're in court. So if you're putting your business hours as 9 to 5, and you don't have an attorney there to meet with someone from 9 to 5 every single day, you're in violation of the Google quality guidelines. So what I've been recommending to fellow attorneys is to have a set day set aside that you'll always be at your office at certain hours to meet with clients. I call it client meeting hours or prospective client meeting hours. So instead of listing your business on Google as 5 days a week, 9 to 5 on Google Local, you should put a disclaimer on your website that because of Google's guidelines, you've been forced to change your business hours to reflect the times that you can meet with clients. And so if you find that you can pay an associate to remain in the office between the hours of 10 to 2 on Friday, that would be the proper way to list your business in Google Local. The problem is when Google calls and they ask you what your hours are and you tell them 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, they're going to change your listing from 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. Usually somebody from India or Pakistan is going to call you with broken English. They're going to ask you a series of questions. You know, where are you located? Are you next to a Starbucks? You know, are you really there? You know, it's like, man, are you kidding me? And if you don't get all the answers right, they'll just delist your business. So, like, the biggest fear that I've heard from other attorneys and other business owners in general is that call from Google, because it's almost like you're taking a lie detector test, and if you don't answer all the questions just right, your business disappears. So it's terrifying to get a call from Google, no matter how legitimate you are. So you have to always have a very well-trained staff so that and you have to make sure that they know your neighborhood very well. Because if it's a new employee and they don't know that you're next to, you know, a library down the street, that may be enough to get that guy over in India to delist your company. The second most important thing is to make sure that you're able to have a representative who can actually say hi to the clients or prospective clients when they come in during those posted hours. And so most law firms can never really comply with that because we never know when we are or aren't going to be in the office. Most of the time we have a receptionist or a secretary who's going to say, do you have an appointment? Because there is no law firm on this planet that takes walk-ins that I've ever run into, ever, because we're busy. So really, the Google quality guidelines for local listings force most businesses to change their business models, or they don't get listed. So these are little things you really need to be aware of. It's kind of scary, but it's doable if you're incredibly intelligent and you have a checklist for your receptionist if they get a phone call, and you make sure your website disclaims, you know, yes, we are normally open 9 to 5, but for purposes of Google, we can only list our business on the local results as being open on Friday from 10 to 2 because that's the only time we can guarantee a lawyer will be there to meet with you, for example. So these are things that you have to be concerned about. There is some speculation that this particular update is designed to catch spammers, and that's why they're propping up suspected spam results in place of the more legitimate businesses that have been verified. And that could be why you're seeing businesses that are labeled personal injury attorney Los Angeles as the top result. So people will report them because, as you know, a TikTok business owner is going to report that listing probably 50 times in a row, as well as every other SEO company who's no longer making 20 grand a month to optimize your local listings because you're calling them, freaking out on them. So these are some issues that I just want people to be aware of. Now, in a later hangout for our paid members, I'm going to go into Freebase and some other techniques to sort of help you guys take control of your listings and your data to make sure that it's clean across the board. But one tip that I'll give you right now is that you should Google your business and make sure that your name, address, and phone number are the same across yellowpages.com, across Superpages. Don't just rely on companies like Yext. Go out there and actually take a look at what you got because you're probably going to find that you've got some disparities. And once you have disparities in your results, that's going to trigger some issues with Google as far as displaying your business properly. So let me just go down here and see if I've got any people checking us out. And we have a guest, Ruthie, if you want to add anything while I'm looking for comments and stuff, feel free to do that. Anything you've noticed, any observations?
You've pretty much covered it all, Ehline. It's the same thing that we're seeing too, which is especially in places with keyword titled businesses are showing up, but despite we have even reported it a couple of times from like different locations, not from the office, to kind of like not show as its competition. So we have done that. It's not worked. We have done it. We did it several times before the update happened too. We did it with outside consultants too. Hasn't worked yet. But I'm also seeing that any variation of the primary term is kind of just it drops that specific business from that place. So they do well for that exact term, but any variation in that term and they're off the chart. So that's a little bit of a good sign because at least our business or our attorneys are doing well on whichever like combination of the term. So
interesting.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it. But yeah, I'm curious. We don't have much experience in Freebase and updating the Freebase database and stuff. So I'd be curious to see how you recommend we go about it.
Yeah, well, I'm going to do a later hangout, probably midweek next week for the paid members, and do a tutorial to show you guys how to do that.
Perfect.
It's really interesting because I don't know why they write why it's scripted the way it is. It's very difficult to understand.
Right.
It's like, are you kidding me? It's written for somebody who speaks advanced engineering or something.
Right.
Or a physicist writing a thesis. But all in all, I think I've kind of nailed it down pretty well, as opposed to paying someone, 10 grand to list it for me, is your other option.
Is Freebase paid?
No. You
It's
typically have to pay someone with an engineering or physics degree to do it for you. It's difficult to understand.
Right.
So I'll show you guys a tutorial step by step, and we'll log in together, and we'll do a location together. Now, excuse me, just really quick, there was a Mozcast draft on a graph on the SERPs for pay-per-click, and they fell tremendously starting on the Pigeon update.
Oh, really? So Pigeon update was sometime earlier this week, right?
Yeah, I believe it was like 7:23 is when it started, and by 7:27 it dropped by like 33% or something.
Oh, wow.
So what's going on is there are less keyword terms displaying in the local results. So unless you did well in organic for those terms, obviously you lost a lot of business. So clearly those businesses now are going to have to turn to pay-per-click unless they did well in organic. To pick up those results, but the problem is, I don't know if you've noticed lately, but man, the bid scores are outrageous for personal injury terms to the point where you literally would have to take a loan out on your house to just get basic clicks.
Yeah, we have someone here on PPC, so I heard some similar update from him too.
Yeah, and so I mean, honestly, this is what's scary for Google and for me as a stockholder. Is I am seeing a mass exodus of traditional Google PPC users over to Bing and Yahoo, which is devastating for me because I don't see how the stocks are going to recover. I think there's only so many things you can do in a failing economy to prop up your stock prices. And there's a point where Google becomes almost like a partner in your business, engaged in like profit sharing. I mean, in order for you to stay alive, and it's almost, I don't know if anybody ever saw the movie Robinson Crusoe.
Oh, yes.
Man Friday. And
yeah.
It's almost like that, where it's like, oh my God, I'm Robinson Crusoe and Google's Man Friday.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, and so...
That's the apt analogy for this.
yeah, that's kind of what's going on. And so, it's like, oh my God, I can't make any money at these click prices. And then of course, the calls that you get on the clicks are usually people who've already called all the organic results and couldn't get an attorney because it's
Right.
like, yeah, I lost my dog. Can I sue somebody? It's like, are you kidding me? Yeah, I'm a
No.
dog bite attorney. Why are you calling me about losing your dog? And that just cost me $50 for this phone call.
Right.
So it's very, very scary, um, especially with the judicial activism in personal injury law. For
Mhm.
example, in California, we have the Ochoa case, which now says that medical bills cannot be used or considered uh, in settling a case. It has to be based upon the fair market value of what the case is.
Oh
Well,
wow.
yeah, and of course the fair market value under Medicaid or Obamacare is like $10 on the $500. So,
Yeah.
and that's kind of where it's headed. So just remember, the ACA was written with the help of the insurance industry. You don't, all those PI lawyers who are gung ho about this are in for a rude awakening because this is tying right into what the insurance industry wanted. And as a result of that, we're finding it's almost impossible to settle a case for what was the normal value of the case. So
Right.
it's getting harder and harder and harder to be able to churn a dollar for your client on these cases. And by the way, in California, uh, if you settle the case based upon the parameters of Ochoa, the lien is still valid with the hospital or the doctor. So if you owe the doctor 20 grand, and you settle the case for $5,000, well, the client still owes the 20 grand. And
Oh.
yeah, and and the lawyer gets his fee out of the five, and guess what's the first thing the client does? Yelp reviews, Google reviews, 1-star rating. My attorney screwed me.
Right. So do
Um,
you think it matters if like reviews are more on Yelp than on Google? Does it have a play at all on this?
I think that the Yelp reviews are very important in Google's mind. They
Hmm.
seem to think that a lot of 5-star reviews and a lot of reviews generally are good, and we're starting to see that in the local results. Not that much, but you'll notice that someone who's got 1,000 reviews is, even with a crummy website and not much of a presence, is going to are starting to outrank legacy businesses with links from high quality, high domain authority sites.
Right. So one of the
So
things that I noticed on like on places search is that for some certain terms, the attorneys that were listed didn't have reviews, or people with reviews, like substantial reviews, were actually not on page one. Now I feel like that's like the algorithm disorienting itself.
yeah, it could be. We've seen that before, where it's sort of hit and miss, because there's a lot of other variables. I mean, there's still the penguin filter. A lot of sites still have that shackle on them, holding them down. And remember, there's different variations of penguin penalties. So you may be at 75% of what you once were, for example, because you have a
Right.
shackle holding your site down. And,
Right.
and especially now because of the data merge, that's clearly a potential issue.
It's
Uh,
confirmed that there's been a data merge?
well, that's what Pigeon is.
Okay,
Pigeon,
okay.
yeah, Pigeon
I
is.
thought those were all speculations. I wasn't sure.
No. Well, remember, Venice was the first. Honestly, I don't even know why they call it Pigeon, because to me, this is just another iteration of Venice.
Okay.
If you go back and research Venice, you'll kind of see that that's where it was headed.
Uh-huh.
And as I stated at the very beginning of the Hangout,
Uh-huh.
um, there is a definite move towards isolating the search results based upon where your office is. So
Hmm.
even if you have an extremely powerful website, I foresee the future of that website is not going to display anywhere except within that zip code. And that
Oh,
makes perfectly good sense, because that's going to drive up pay-per-click if you want to get business outside your zip code.
right.
Which, it's really amazing because, we just had this big debate over net neutrality. The new FCC chairman is a former lobbyist for
Right.
the internet service providers.
Mhm.
Wow, how that happened is beyond me. But we sort of see this big push to sort of turn our tax-funded internet that we've already paid for into a yellow pages where big political donors, and it doesn't matter what party's in power, whoever donates the most money to the re-election campaign, is ruling and passing laws to favor this to happen. And so I don't know, a lot of people who are on the internet probably don't even remember the days of the yellow pages. But to get a decent listing in the yellow pages, you'd pay $10,000 or $15,000 a month. It was outrageous.
Right. Yes.
And you sort of see that trend happening by these big companies paying off politicians to sort of make that happen on the internet. But the difference is the internet's a highway that we paid for that was developed by the U.S. military with American tax dollars. And we sort of see that movement towards basically isolating the results if your organic site displays at all for your actual zip code that your business is located in. And so as a result, now you're going to be forced to basically go back to the old Yellow Pages system. So even without net neutrality or with net neutrality, you still see companies like Google sort of moving in that direction. The big question is going to be, well, how on earth are you going to be able to survive in the virtual world and as a business? And, you know, honestly, I just hope to God that I get a big case and I can just retire. Because what I'm seeing is it'll be impossible to really have a decent website because there's no way you'll be able to pay people to make a decent website. And what's the use when it's not going to display in the top results? When it's being replaced by Yelps and Avos and stuff like that, why even bother?
Right.
And so you kind of see that. So the question is, and this is something that Demir's over at Audience Bloom talked about. One of his articles on Forbes was really interesting. You know, he sort of talked about the cycles in online companies, like the Yahoos and the Googles of this world. And it reminded me of that Excite example that we discussed earlier in the conversation. You know, right now, it's open season for someone to come along and create a new Google who goes by the old Google philosophy of rewarding a business who has a good site with good organic results.
Right.
And not just saying that you'll reward that business with good results, but actually doing it. And so what I see is, yeah, they have a lot of money, and yeah, they're dominating right now, but so did Yahoo, and so did Excite. And so it's going to be interesting to see, where, when you throw up your jacks and your balls up in the air, how they're all going to land.
Right.
So let's see what happens here, because right now, I believe, personally, that someone could come along and create a really phenomenal search engine that could end up replacing Google if this trend continues, because businesses aren't really happy. And as I explained earlier, users are getting increasingly frustrated with the returns. I mean, if you do a search for personal injury attorney, you're going to get Wikipedia as one of the results.
Right.
Yelp. And
exactly. I also have a feeling that this it could be to test things out. You want to see how much of a local traction you can get from an update like this, because I think I read somewhere that Yelp initially complained about Google displaying Google results when somebody specifically typed Yelp in the query. And it was a very subtle sort of subtle way of dealing with with this algorithm to kind of fix that issue. So I feel like while Google ideally would want only Google and only Google products up there, it's also realizing that it is then kind of diverting from its mission, which is authenticity and organic results. This would be like clear manipulation of results.
Yeah, that's right. Go ahead, keep talking.
No, I think it's something Google is smart enough to know that they can't just stick with a certain innovation that they think will work. They have to test it out. They're going to. My feeling is they're going to test the waters, and they're going to hopefully try and keep some of these other local directories happy, so that they can really try and optimize and show complete visibility on Google. But at the same time, I also think that then businesses are going to get frustrated that they have lost like their position on Google, and then they're going to have there'll be a little bit of back and forth. It'll be interesting to see what the next move is going to be, but
I agree with you, and I think if you look at, and we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, the antitrust claims made by Yelp. Conrad Sams was suggesting that this could be Google's way of trying to mitigate that lawsuit, those claims by Yelp, by propping them up artificially, to try to keep them happy. And then, your comments about, businesses being upset about losing their rankings. Honestly, I don't know that Google really factors that into their decision-making process, because probably in their mind, hey, it's free for them. They're getting free business because of our search engine.
Right. But initially, wasn't that their whole shtick, that they were helping small businesses?
Well, that's what they said, but see, but a good defense attorney at Google could say, well, but we are helping them by displaying Yelp, because look at all the lawyers there.
Right.
But really it's only helping Yelp, and it's actually going to take away from their PPC budgets, because now, again, to do well in Yelp, you have to pay.
Right.
You're not just going to show up number one for personal injury attorney at Yelp. You got to pay an enormous amount of money.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree with you. So there is, I have Oliver here, who also helps us out with SEO a lot. He tunes into weekly the call sessions for us. So he has, I think, a question or two for you. Oliver?
Absolutely. Let's talk, Oliver.
Yeah, big fan of the Colt web hangouts. So my first question is, if the directories are showing up as the first 3 results or so, and you said people or informed consumers tend to shy away from the PPC ads, are people tending to click lower results as well? You said that they were looking back up to the ads if the directories are showing up at top, but is there any change in the heat maps?
That's the thing. I'm sure they're testing that right now, but clearly, based as a business owner who's been replaced by Yelp,
yeah,
I'm below them now. I'm seeing a definite drop-off in traffic, huge drop-off in traffic. And so I can only assume that they're either clicking on Yelp or they're going, screw that, I don't want to look at Yelp. If I wanted to look at Yelp, I would have typed in Yelp. You see?
Yeah.
And their eyes are just going to go back up to the pay-per-click results. I mean, that's just the natural human nature, the lazy factor, and just sort of being trained over the years that you look at the first 3 or 4 organic results, and then you scroll back up and click on the PPC or the sidebar. And I think that's probably the hope, for the stockholders and such, that by doing this, this is going to sort of cause more people to click on the pay-per-click results. But ultimately it hurts all of us who have been spending thousands of dollars and thousands of hours building these quality websites that Matt Cutts told us to build. So it's just kind of weird, then of course he disappeared from the picture.
What what happened with that? I was looking for like some update from there, but I didn't see any.
Well, I read his blog post and it sounds plausible.
Does he talk about Pigeon specifically? No, right?
Yeah, well, he was saying originally I was only supposed to do this for a month or a year or something. And then it turned out to be 15 years, and now I'm going to go on a hiatus. But notice, and he's on his hiatus, and all these devastating things are taking place.
Yes, yeah.
And there's no spokesman from Google to defend it or explain it anymore.
Right.
So, really it's unsettling for business owners, but I don't really believe that that's Google's primary concern as business owners. I think Google is looking at consumers, and how, and then the business owner is basically there to pay Google. And the consumer is there to get results from Google. And so I'm seeing sort of a shift. But what I think they need to look at is, look, we're in one of the worst economies in history right now. And it's devastating. And and there's less people working. So as a personal injury attorney, I mean, for crying out loud, in Torrance, which is where I have an office, Toyota, they just moved their business to Texas because the taxes and the regulations are so devastating to California businesses that they're leaving the state. And so because of that, now for me as a business owner, I have less money now because there's less clients.
Right.
There's less people driving because gasoline prices are through the roof. I mean, like 60% of what you pay here in California at the pump are federal and state gas taxes.
Right.
So it's crazy. And so you have more people carpooling, or you just have people who've fallen out of looking for a job altogether. And as a result of that, there are less car accidents, there's less clients, and you still have people graduating law schools in droves, right?
Right. One more question for you, Oliver.
So, did you ask about title tags?
No, this is
Okay.
it's a little it's digressing a little bit from local directories and stuff, but on a kind of different note.
So recently we've noticed that Google has been changing our title tags more often in the search results, which, I mean, I know that's been a practice that they've been involved with for a while, but we've been seeing it happen more and more often, and I was wondering if you've seen that as well, or if you have any ideas on why that may be.
Well, yeah, I do. Typically what Google wants to do is they want to provide the result that they think the consumer wants to improve user experience. A lot of times they'll pull that data from DMOZ.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Typically you'll see your description and your title become the DMOZ description and title. Or they'll just give some other description that's like a few paragraphs down in your website that they feel is more relevant. Now, I know that there's a way you can go into Webmaster Tools and you can turn that feature off. If you use Yoast, if you use Yoast on WordPress,
yeah, that's what we use generally.
Yeah, there's also a feature in there somewhere. Too bad Andre is not here because he could tell you exactly about it. But there's a feature in there as well where you can go in and you can turn that off and send a message to Google's robots to display your actual title and description that you want. For me, it doesn't. Yeah, I don't care. I want to. If Google thinks that that's better, then I want them to display that because it's their party, and I'm just here, trying to.
Right, but sometimes it almost feels like it's a very conflicting title tag because we have we have heavy sites. We have sites with a lot of pages, so we might have and it's selective in the pages it does this for. So it's not like it universally does this across the site. It's just it picks a few pages here and there. So we're afraid of like conflicting indication of what those pages are.
I mean, it causes pages to compete with each other that wouldn't have otherwise, in our opinion. But I mean, we thought maybe that's Google's way of saying that they already are. It's not a big issue,
but before it becomes like a big issue, we want to kind of address it. That's basically the approach we're trying to take here. But I'll look at WMT, and I'm also going to email Andre and see if he has an idea about where to access this and control it from WordPress.
That's right. And then, another thing you might want to look at too, guys. Panda is really, really looking for overlap. I found that just repeating a term on one page on my site, for example, I have a truck accident attorney page, but I have a breadcrumb, excuse me, at the top of my bicycle accident attorney page that breadcrumbs to the trucking page. Because, trucks run over bicyclists all the time.
Right.
So now Google is displaying my bicycle accident attorney page when someone does a search for truck accident attorneys.
Oh.
And it pushed both pages further down. So Panda's constantly looking for overlap.
Right.
So and if it finds that, it actually hurts the results on the entire site. It pushes your whole site down.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so okay. Well, with the overlap, we heard what you had to say before, and we've been trying to address it. But this is more where those general pages that you spoke about, which are the general, more factual information on the law pages, the title tags are being changed to such and such a lawyer, and competing with the lawyer page of it. And that's where we were a little bit concerned.
Yeah, and I got you. I'm hypothesizing that there could be a situation where Google has decided that the page that you'd like to display, for example, maybe it's displaying another page because you have overlap. I'm trying to come up with a theory as to why this might be happening. and maybe
Right.
they're switching out based upon their understanding of your site. Just an
Right.
idea.
We're also seeing like a lot of like back and forth. Like it seems like it's almost so disoriented that it's trying to figure out like the structure of your site, or like a data, like their database is getting refreshed in certain like servers. I don't even know what it is, but a lot of back and forth. We were having issue with DC DUI a while ago. Now it seems to be steadily coming up on page 1, but
yeah.
it was just fluctuating back and forth with no reason.
Yeah, you're referencing organic, I assume.
Yes. This is organic, not places. Places we've known, like especially with this latest update. Anyway, but yeah, that's pretty much what we've seen.
Yeah. Thanks, Ehline. I'm gonna go.
Okay.
No worries. I'm glad I can help out. So, anyways, that pretty much concludes the session. Just a little bit of an overview about what's going on. My guess is that this is a flux, or they've decided to do what is called a carousel, where you'll never really have any consistent degree of certainty as to how your business will rank in the local results. It'll always be someone clicks on it, and another business will pop up, as opposed to yours. That's kind of where I see this heading.
Right.
It's a theory that I have. If that's not the case, then it's just a major foobar with this Pigeon update, and hopefully somebody over there will figure it out.
Exactly.
But without a sounding board, without somebody at Google to talk to, like Matt Cutts, it's going to become increasingly more difficult to really know what to do. And again, all roads lead to paper.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's all you can do. Wait, watch, and act.
Yeah, that's right. So, all I could really suggest is, if you want to continue to try and do well on Google, is to continue doing what Matt Cutts said to do before he left, which is continue, trying to build quality pages, unique pages that no one else has. I mean, don't just look at the sites that are beating you and try to rewrite their pages. Look at the sites that are beating you and try to make better pages that cover more information.
Right.
And cite out to the sources that you relied upon to get your information. So if it's a case, link to the Justia page that has the case law so people can follow it. If it's another attorney website, for example, I found a really, really great page on Seth Price's site about left-hand turn motorcycle accidents, and I linked to it as a citation at the bottom of one of the pages on my motorcycle accident blog. Because I think that it's useful and helpful to consumers. But I didn't do a bunch of exact match anchors. And it wasn't a link exchange. It was just a natural, progression of, if I find something useful. And honestly, when you do citations out, don't just look for .gov and .edu. Look at other attorneys, because typically they're going to have a reasoned analysis of what's discussed on the .gov or the .edu site from an attorney's perspective. After all, it isn't an art; it's a practice.
Right.
So you can get different perspectives, and don't be so concerned that you're linking to a commercial site. Be more concerned about how you link to them. Does it look contrived, that you're just trying to help them get a backlink, or is it actually something that's helpful? And then, of course, if you find good stuff on .gov and .edu sites, of course, you want to link to that as well. So when you're formulating your content pages, always make sure to link out to the sources of information that you feel are valuable to consumers and fellow lawyers alike. And of course, to find good information, all the members of the Circle Legal Trust, engage in these tactics that Matt Cutts said to engage in. So right away, you have a codex of websites that you can cull through to find good stuff. Where they're not sites that aren't penalized by Google, they're not sites that are engaged in link building and all this other stuff that Google doesn't like, because you don't want to link out to bad neighborhoods either. So it sort of gives you at least a little bit of a green light that, okay, this is okay to link to this site, kind of a thing. But other than that, that's pretty much all I have to say about Pigeon.
Excellent. If we we can talk a little bit more about the links that you had sent us. I don't know how you want to do this. Did you?
Yeah. Let me just end the broadcast here, and I'll
Right.
talk. Hold on one second. Okay. So here's the deal, guys. That was the end of our discussion on Pigeon. I'm going to clock out here. But if you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to contact me on my Google profile. If you're an attorney and you're stuck in consternation with all this stuff, consider joining the Circle of Legal Trust, and we'll be able to help you out, attorney to attorney, with your issues. Other than that, signing off. I'm just going to stop the broadcast here.